Welcome back to the Female Athlete Summit, the online platform for female athletes, coaches, sports performance coaches, and parents. Today, I'm excited to be talking to my good friend Liz because we are going to offer kind of a different perspective on how to help kids if they're having problems with stress, anxiety, trouble sleeping. I think I am all about the whole person and throwing in a holistic approach. So we are going to be talking about the benefits of essential oils. So Liz, welcome to the call, my friend.
Jen, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because, again, I think this offers a different perspective that a lot of people probably have heard about and they've seen all over the social media, websites, but they don't know enough about it. So I think you're the perfect person to talk about it. But before we get into that, for everyone that's not familiar with you, talk about your background a little bit and how you got into essential oils.
Sure. Well, my background is I've been a dance instructor, so I've been working with kids since 1991 with a competitive competition team, which I consider them to be athletes.
Absolutely.
Tumbling and things like that. I'm also CPR and first aid certified. I'm also pet CPR and first aid certified. I used to own a pet sitting company. I'm FYM certified through Holly Rigsby, her company, Fit Yummy Mummy. I'm a licensed nail technician, which really helped me learn a lot about chemistry and biology and, furthered my education. And I was also a chiropractic assistant and worked with a chiropractor for years. So I do have like a good working knowledge of the body beyond my own.
I mean, very well rounded on everything. So talk about how you yourself, or whether it was someone in your family, kind of discovered essential oils and was like, wow, this is the real deal.
Well, I was back in about 1998, I was having bad anxiety, and I heard that lavender was really good for and calming. So I was having these, what I first thought was almost like an acid reflux, but it actually turned out to be an anxiety attack. So it was a physical response to anxiety. And I had some results that were helpful, but it didn't really, it was hit or miss kind of a thing. And so then when later on, years later, after I've had children, a good friend of mine back in 2015, she was having really great results with her family in essential oils. And I just finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? I want to know more. So she came over and she talked to me about them and she explained how oils work and that the purity of the oil is really, really paramount when it comes to their effectiveness on our bodies. And so she just basically had me all in. I was super excited because for me, it was how they affected our emotional state first. And then I found so many other uses for them. So we've just pretty much transformed our whole household to be very oily and oil-based, and we've just loved them. So that's the gist of it.
What exactly is an essential oil? Like if it was like a definition or you're trying to explain to someone that is like, I hear about it, but what exactly is it?
Right, and so many people think it's just aromatherapy. Essential oil is the volatile compound from the plant. So they can be distilled from shrubs, leaves, sticks, all of the parts of the plant. They're steam distilled. So it's that part of the plant that is the lifeblood that actually helps the plant survive the elements and intruders and all sorts of things. And what's really cool about oils is they actually affect us on a cellular level and give us that same strength that they give the plants.
Well, that's interesting. And you touched on this prior, but talk about like if we're going to pick essential oils, and we can probably touch on this in the end too, why it's so important for like the purity of it. I would relate it to if someone's going to eat food, always, people look for organic before they look for kind of regular with certain vegetables and fruits. But talk about the purity and why it's so important when you're using essential oils.
So one big thing about oils is that they're so powerful because they are that lifeblood. And unfortunately, not all companies use the same practices. There's no government regulation for how oils should be processed or be on the market. There's an FDA label law that actually says that an essential oil company only needs to have 5 to 10% pure oil in the bottle in order to label that bottle 100% pure.
Wow.
And basically what they're saying is that 5 to 10% is pure. But you know what? The consumer doesn't realize that. It's just kind of like that whole greenwashing mindset that, oh, this appears to be natural, but is it really? And the problem is that a lot of companies will use pesticides on their crops. They will use chemical solvents to break down the plant material. And why that's so dangerous is because they penetrate into our skin so quickly, and they can be in our bloodstream within 24 seconds, whether inhaling them, applying them to our skin, and even ingesting them. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're pure so that you are not, poisoning yourself, quite frankly. I mean, you would have to consume, a tremendous amount, obviously, for it to have a really negative effect, but you probably won't have a positive effect, which is what happened to me years ago when I first tried them. They just really didn't do that much.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense, right? I mean, obviously you want the purest form when you're like just having it in your house and you're breathing it, or if you're tasting it. So one of the reasons I wanted you on, I'm a huge supporter of essential oils. I have some kind of on right now as I'm doing my interviews to keep me nice and lively and kind of focused. I think that our athletes today, our young kids, are under, we have a huge mental health problem in this society, and people don't want to talk about it. And sometimes I'm not a doctor. People need to be on meds, but I think sometimes essential oils could help. So I would love to talk to you about kind of breaking down three things. The stress with our kids, and what you would recommend, anxiety and sleep. So we'll kind of go step by step. So which one do you want to tackle first?
Let's just talk about stress. I mean, every human being, every being,
excuse me,
even our pets, deal with stress, right? So there are different oils that can definitely help with stress. I use a stress blend that contains copaiba, which is from a tree in Brazil, lime, which is very uplifting, cedarwood, which is very calming, and lavender. And that's also very calming. So it just kind of helps us balance our bodies. And it gives us that one thing I wanted to touch on is that when we do just inhale oils, the sense of smell is only one of the 5 senses, obviously, but it's linked to the limbic lobe of the brain. And the fact that the oils can affect the limbic system of the brain is huge. So that's why you're stressed out. I'll keep my stress blend with me when my husband's driving the car, and I just kind of sniff it out of the bottle so that I can not, want to be like, what are you doing? But there's other parts to that too. From stress, we can lead to anxiety, because anxiety can also, not only do we have anxiety, but it can lead to more stress, right? So there's a blend that I use that contains spruce and blue tansy, frankincense. Frankincense, if you were raised in if anyone is familiar with any kind of Christian-based faith, baby Jesus, love his frankincense. There was a reason why it was considered so precious to bring to, the new king, right? And frankincense is very grounding. It's great for your spirituality, but being grounded is so tremendous. I hear so many people, being from the Northeast, who say, oh, I just love to go to the ocean and put my feet in the sand. Being grounded is a legitimate thing that human beings need to do. And oils can help us do that, being connected.
Let me ask you a question before you get on to sleep for a second. So you gave blends. If someone's like new to the game of essential oils and they're like, oh, a blend, that's a lot going on there. If you had to pick one, and I'm putting you on the spot here, maybe 2 oils, one oil that you would say could help with anxiety and or stress, what would be kind of like the oil you would tell people to start with?
Lavender is known as the Swiss Army knife of oils. It has thousands and thousands of uses, from physical application, from if you cut yourself, if it's a pure lavender, it can actually coagulate the blood. It can help with bruising. It can help with healing. It's great for skin, but it's also great for calming and grounding. So yeah, it's a natural antihistamine. It's got so many uses. So lavender, to me, I always say, if all else fails, you don't know what to do, grab your lavender.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about lavender. I have a couple friends that are psychologists. They work with children, and I don't know how we got on the subject. We got on the subject about, Ativan, lorazepam, about how it's anxiety. And she was saying there was a study. I don't know which one. So all those like science nuts that are listening, don't like attack. But there was a study where they gave someone like a lavender pill and gave someone like a lorazepam, Ativan, and they saw like a better success rate with giving lavender pills to like calm people down. So that's just funny you just said lavender. All right, so then what'd you say? Sorry?
I was just going to say, quite frankly, with a pharmaceutical, it will stay in the body a certain amount of time. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're using anything holistic, is that you might need to use it again and again. But since oils do change us on a cellular level, eventually you won't need as much. So
yeah. And again, just to reiterate, like, we're talking about this, like, we're just giving different options to people if they're having trouble with stress or having trouble with anxiety, just to give it, keep an open mind. I mean, we're not saying that sometimes, we're not doctors, so just I want everyone to understand that we're just, we're giving, we want to be open-minded. I think a lot more people are changing into more, I don't know if the holistic is the right word, but kind of a whole, we're making ourselves more well-rounded with how we can treat different things that our kids and just adults in general are going through. So let's talk about sleep. I personally think, and I deal with kids, God, during the week, I could see up to 100 kids. And I always say, all right, who's gotten 8 hours of sleep? Not one kid will ever raise their hand about that. So obviously they're not getting, I think, the amount of sleep, but I think the quality of sleep matters. So talk about if someone's having a hard time sleeping, what you would recommend for oils.
Well, lavender, again, is a great one. If you are one of those people that, if you take, say, Benadryl, for instance, and I know some people, like for me, Benadryl knocks me out. For some people, Benadryl makes them hyper. So if you're the kind of person that it makes lavender may not be your oil. You might want to do something like orange. Orange can tend to be very calming for people who have the opposite effect when it comes to lavender. Cedarwood's really great too. It's very calming. Blue tansy is another one. It's very calming. Blue tansy helps to calm the lymphatic system and the liver. So that's why it's going to help you with breathing and sleep. When we're breathing right, we're sleeping better. We're going into a deeper REM sleep. So those are kind of some of the things that I would suggest when it comes for rest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I kind of discovered essential oils for myself is, number one, I usually am the opposite effect of what people give me. And it's a running joke with people that you could try to give me something that would knock me out, and I'm running around. I could run a marathon, and also I do some holistic stuff with ART and Reiki, and the woman I work with is a huge supporter of essential oils, and that's kind of how it led me down the path. But I love it. If people are listening to this call, they're probably, I'm sure, you got to be open-minded, right? I think, and I totally forget my question, but I think it was around some tips you would give people that are listening that are kind of skeptical right now. What would you say to them? Because I'm sure you started out, you didn't have really good success the first time around, you tried oils, and then you did the second time around. What would be kind of your advice, your tips for people listening?
Well, I think the one thing is to just be your own advocate. No one's saying that, you can't use your pharmaceuticals. Obviously they have a place, but there's a place for natural remedies too. Oils are really the first, they've been used for thousands and thousands of years and are mentioned in the Bible 1,100 times. So this is not a new thing. It's new to some of us because of, we're used to the convention. But I would say just really seek out a company that has pure oils. And some of the things to be sure of is when you check the back of the label, does it say something like keep out of reach of children? Do not ingest. Listen, peppermint is a wonderful oil. It oxygenates the blood. It helps you push through plateaus. It helps you stay focused. It's amazing. But if the back of the back of the bottle says do not ingest, then that's not a pure oil. You want to use one that is pure. So those are just a couple of red flags. If they say, don't apply to the skin, those are just oils I would probably stay away from. And I would look for a company that owns their own farms, that you can take the oils internally. Like I mentioned, peppermint, you can eat a peppermint leaf off the peppermint plant, then you should be able to ingest that oil. Make sure you can visit the places where they make the oils and where they distill them, because they should have a very transparent process. Make sure they have in-house lab testing and third-party lab testing, and that they have a community of people who will help you learn more and grow in your knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, that's some important stuff. So if someone wanted to try this out, where would you recommend them start? So with essential oils, obviously we hear a lot about diffusers, or you could put the oil right on your body, or you could ingest it. Do you usually tell people where, do you recommend a diffuser, or do you recommend put it on their body? Where would you recommend to start?
If I'm talking with somebody, one-on-one, and I just basically tell them about my own personal advice. I started out with just diffusing. Just diffusing, I felt an effect, and it actually made me sleepy, and it was probably because I was becoming relaxed. when we detox, when our systems are full of toxins from bioaccumulation, from all of the different, personal care products and cleaners and air fresheners and all that stuff, it can add stress. It can cause anxiety. So just using oils aromatically right then is going to be so beneficial, because immediately it starts the natural detoxification process. Lemon's very highly detoxifying, but all oils naturally detox our systems. So I think if you're not sure what to do, get a good quality medical grade plastic diffuser, so it's like BPA free and safe, and just start with diffusing a couple oils and play around. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but it can be. Explain
like exactly what a diffuser is. I'm sure there's some people listening be like, what the hell is a diffuser?
Yeah, so a diffuser is basically it's an electronic mechanism that you plug in, and you add water to it, and then a couple drops of essential oil, and it does what's it called? It's a cool mist. So It's heating up. If you use anything that heats up the oil and it's a therapeutic grade oil, it's going to destroy the therapeutic compounds of the oil. So you want to use something that's cool mist, and it basically just breaks the molecules up into the air, so it's easy to absorb and breathe in.
Perfect. Have there been any studies done that of with, let's say, athletes or young people where they with athletic stuff with injuries, pulled muscles? Have there been studies done to show that rubbing some essential oils or diffusing it has helped in the recovery?
Well, I could definitely speak about my own experiences.
Sure.
I've used a blend, which it doesn't have to be a blend, something like just simple like wintergreen. Wintergreen thins the blood and it actually helps movement. So that's wonderful. Copaiba is another one I mentioned before. It's very highly anti-inflammatory. So I go to Copaiba for me personally, rather than I used to grab an ibuprofen. So for just even menstrual cramps, I put Copaiba right on my belly because it breaks down that inflammation and I don't have the discomfort. The same with wintergreen. Peppermint's wonderful too. Peppermint's a natural pain blocker. And as far as athletes, and like I had mentioned, pushing through plateaus, I've seen studies with racehorses specifically where they'll give pure peppermint, a drop on the racehorse's tongue, and they are just pushing through, and they wind up pushing through those plateaus because of the oxygenation of the blood.
I think that's interesting, because I think the first place, if someone's, has an injury or they're in pain or they're having trouble one way or the other, and they've tried a few things and it doesn't work, have an open mind. I think essential oils is a great place to start. Or if you're just curious, I think we're pretty confident if you're using a pure oil, it's not going to hurt you. I think is that pretty confident to say that an oil probably wouldn't hurt you?
Absolutely. I mean, the wintergreen I use has a child-safe cap on it because it does thin your blood, and and that's basically because of FDA regulations. But you would have to consume so much or put so much wintergreen on, bottles and bottles and bottles of a 15 milliliter bottle. You're not gonna cut yourself and then bleed out because you used a couple drops of wintergreen. So a lot of those, sometimes we see some strange studies. There's been lavender can tend to be estrogenic, so there's this caution about, boys shouldn't, or even girls shouldn't be using lavender at a younger age because it's going to cause early menstruation. You would have to be literally consuming bottles and bottles daily, which no one would ever do because they're so powerful. You only need a couple of drops.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about it is I think there's not really any side effects unless you're ridiculous about how you do it. Whereas you take some sort of med, you never know what's going to happen with the body. So as we round out this call, we've talked about a wide range of topics. Is there anything else you want to share to all the listeners about essential oils and why you love them so much?
For me, the way my journey went really was, like I had said, it started with anxiety, and then it was to help my family, emotions. Kids have meltdowns. I have little ones. But it wound up walking me into realizing that there is not really a lot of regulation on our shelves and our stores about things like fragrance. It's a very broad spectrum. There's just something you can look up. It's called the Substance Control Act of 1976. And that's when everything was grandfathered in, the government grandfathered in all of these toxic chemicals. And so many companies even today still use those chemicals because they don't have to go through testing. They don't have to get regulations. They can use them, but we don't honestly know the effects on the body. And we're learning that they are causing cancer and other adverse effects. So to just lean towards something to purify your air, clean your counters and your cabinets that is oil-based is amazing. I used to have weekly headaches and I stopped using air freshener. I was like, I loved my air freshener, especially around the holidays, and I stopped using them. And I have to say the headaches are completely eliminated. When I get a headache now, I know it's because I haven't had my coffee or some other reason, get my period, but it's not like, oh, this is weird. Why do I have a headache? Well, maybe it's because I was cleaning with all sorts of toxic chemicals and spraying stuff in my house. So that's just something I love to bring awareness to that, because people just really don't know. And unfortunately, we think it's in our store shelves and it's safe, but we have to read those warning labels. They're there for a reason.
Yeah, I'm all about this summit. Obviously, I just try to educate, give different options to people. And I think essential oils, like, again, I have mine running right now. I'm a big believer in them. So Liz, if people want to find out more about you and what you're doing, website, social media, where can they find you?
My name's Liz Bourguet, B-O-U-R-G-U-E, I can't even spell my name, G-U-E-T. Jen, I'm sure we'll have that information up for you guys. That's my YouTube, my Instagram, my Facebook, everything is my name, my blog, so it's very easy to find.
We'll put some links at the bottom to have you guys, if you want to find more information about some of these oils that Liz mentioned, we'll have links at the bottom to lead you to the oils and Liz. So Liz, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, and hopefully one day you and I are going to meet in person.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Would love to, Jen. Take care.
Thanks.